DC Comics will no longer be making its own toys, statues, prop replicas, action figures. No, 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 no. They are reorganizing at Warner Media, and they have found this to be a business they do not want to be in. We will get into this article and go over all of it. First, it's a huge help to me when you subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Thank you so much for doing that sincerely. And if you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com. You can pick up a copy of College of the Dead Graduation Day, my ongoing zombie apocalypse full color series, and go to epicmermaids.com and sign up for The Mermaids. We'll send you an email when this graphic novel comes out. It's coming out soon. All right, back to the article. This is coming from Bleeding Cool. DC Comics answers the future with direct DC Collectibles. Okay, when they're answering the future, they answer this question. What is the future of DC Direct? All right, and the answer is simple. They're not going to continue DC Direct. But why, and what are their plans for it, and how are they going to make sure that cool stuff keeps coming out? They explain it pretty well. First of all, what is DC Direct? DC Direct was a division of Warner Media that sells collectibles based on DC Comics characters. Prior to 1998, merchandise sold by DC Comics was branded with the DC Comics logo rather than the DC Direct or DC Collectibles logo. The company was called DC Direct from 1998 to 2012. From 2012 to 2020, DC Direct was known as DC Collectibles. On January 23, 2019, DC Comics told its employees that DC Collectibles would be moved to the Warner Brothers Consumer Products Division as part of a company-wide reorganization. On Wednesday, February 19, 2020, the company changed its name back to DC Direct on its Facebook page. On Thursday, February 20th, wow, these very specific dates. Hope you're writing all this down. The company officially announced the name change. DC Direct produces statues, busts, action figures, prop replicas, and art prints for the direct market comic book stores. A distribution and retail network primarily serving comic book stores. Now, the direct market of comic book stores is down to 2,000 stores. Soon to be less stores, unfortunately. There used to be as many as 10,000 or more of these stores. It was a viable market in the past. It is no longer a viable market, unfortunately, for most publishers, and certainly not for this whole division making these high-end collectibles and toys to be sold directly to stores, to be managed by Warner Media. Warner Media does not want to be managing a niche, little small toy company that sells to a declining number of comic book stores. I love comic book stores personally. Very excited about publishing comics. I publish comics now, but it is not a real business. You know, it's not a niche that's sustainable. Any business line at Warner Media that can't sustain a CEO, its own CEO or president, is going to be knocked down to being managed as a little business unit like a general manager. They are bringing in a general manager for DC Comics, and that division is supposed to be focused. It's supposed to be successful, financially successful. It's supposed to generate intellectual property that could then be put through the rest of the media enterprise, through streaming and movies and television and other experiences and ventures. And they need a focus over there. They need people to be focused on that. So a division even like Crunchyroll has, which is also owned by Warner Media, it has its own general manager. It doesn't have a CEO. It doesn't have a CEO because they don't feel like it's something that they can develop into a scalable, very big, successful business. So anything that's got a CEO attached to it that's through Warner Media, like Jason Killar is their CEO, Pam Liffords, all of these heads of groups that's equivalent to the title of president for them. These are all in big, important divisions with people that they think have strategic vision and are capable of running it as its own separate entity and making it a big, successful unit. Something that they believe they can grow into a business that's 5, 10, or 20 times the scale. That's the purpose of having a president or a CEO. Something that's like a general manager, you just they're keeping an eye on it. They don't want anything to fall apart. They need accountability. Maybe it could grow as a division in the future. But what that also means is if you have a division that has a general manager, it can't be in multiple lines of business. You know, it can't be making toys, and it can't be making its own separate print product, being a reliable supplier of intellectual property to the rest of Warner Media. It can't be in all of those areas run by a general manager and they certainly don't feel like it's worth putting a CEO in place of DC, at least not right now. Keep in mind they also have the digital division, which they do generate some revenue from, and I'm going to do a separate video about that in the future. But that said, they need to cut out lines of business that don't seem relevant or seem like they need to be done internally, and they have enough licensees of people that want to license their toys and merchandise and statues that they certainly don't need to put management attention into trying to run a toy division. They have enough trouble trying to run DC Comics profitably. All right, but Bleeding Cool did go ahead and ask DC Direct what they plan to do in the future, and they did get a sensible response, so let's see what they got as a response. What is the future of DC Direct? When we started, we were one of the first companies, if not the first, to go out and create a business that catered to that specialty market. That success has brought in a lot of competitors and a lot of companies that are now in that space. So it's about evolving the model. We want to produce those collectibles and serve those fans, but we will probably shift to a higher price point collectible and more of a licensing model. What that tells me is, amazingly, they made these beautiful toys, but when they say shift to a higher price point, they weren't profitable. They went through all of this trouble and all of this investment and all of this expense to make these cool fan things, but somehow were actually not profitable and were allowed to operate in such a way that they weren't profitable as a going concern. That would be very frustrating to someone who invested in their company. But I could be wrong, but when he says a higher price point, that means that we'll probably shift to a higher price point, meaning, yeah, this stuff wasn't viable at that price. Good gracious. Okay, continuing. Working with manufacturers we already work with. Yeah. So when they're saying they're going to work with more of a licensing model, working with manufacturers they already work with at a higher price point, I mean, they have licensees they want to work with. Sometimes in these situations, you could work directly with the manufacturer, encourage the manufacturer to become a licensee, and then let the manufacturer assume all the responsibility and expense and risk of making and marketing this stuff. From a consumer's point of view, there will not be a change or a drop off in the quality of the work they are seeing. Okay, we're just going to raise the prices. So a consumer won't even notice, except now they're going to pay 50% more. Who knows how much. Behind the scenes, how we create it and how we get it to them is going to change. We still have our principal lead of DC Direct, Jim Fletcher, within the company. He will be showcased in a fun panel with J. Scott Campbell at Fandom. So you may be able to watch that. So DC Direct will now seemingly be licensing off properties to companies they are already involved with. So this most likely means we will see the DC Direct name partner up with another company. I would imagine, well, of course. The other company would be the actual manufacturer. Of course you would. I would imagine we will still see new statues and toys from companies like McFarlane Toys, XM Studios, Sideshow Collectibles, and others. This is slightly disappointing, but they did not always have the best track record. I assume this will mean most likely affect some of the more prominent lines like Batman black and white statues and their DC Essentials figures. If I didn't buy any of these figures, if they seem inexpensive to you, I didn't price them out, expect the prices to go up. With the popularity of the McFarlane Toys DCU line, I hope this means more properties will be coming our way. Fans enjoy some truly amazing collectibles. Yeah, so there will be more released about DC Direct in their August 22 Fandom event. So they're going to continue with the merchandise, and they're going to keep this guy, Jim Fletcher, in place because he has all the relationships with the manufacturers, and they're going to work with the manufacturers to take over producing and also marketing, which is really not that hard. They just have to, the marketing side is you just basically contact the distributors directly and let the distributors do the promotion for you because, you know, what marketing are they really going to do? Maybe a couple of promotional posters. All right, well, that's interesting. It's DC getting more focused and focusing on what they should be focused on. How are they going to make intellectual property that they can license to the rest of Warner Media, as well as license outside to other companies like they already do? They have a very capable head of licensing in Pam Lifford. She's got a great background, by the way. I'm going to do a video just on this Pam Lifford. She used to be at Disney as a general manager for their global, for a global clothing unit for children's clothes. A really, really successful executive. So, you know, for her, she's looking at relationships she has and is probably saying, hey, we could do so much better with licensing these out. And then we can have a general manager be responsible. I mean, you can imagine, particularly with this comment, I mean, this is really is an outrageous comment for me to see someone say, we're going to work with the same manufacturers, but probably shift to a higher price point. Meaning like they were really doing this and they weren't charging enough. They weren't doing it profitably. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. So yeah, this is why you're not seeing this at DC anymore. Is if they couldn't do this stuff profitably, then you can't bring in a general manager like they're doing now and hold the general manager responsible for bottom line accountability and profitability when they're supposed to be responsible for a money losing line. That's why you would move something like this out to the manufacturers and then let the manufacturers figure out how to make a profit. All right, well, that was fascinating. We will have more videos on this subject. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell for notifications. I'd love to see your comments on this. Do you think they made the right move by stopping doing DC collectibles and toys and stage props and all that stuff inside? Do you think that they could have continued doing this somehow at a profit? God knows how, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com. Check it out. It's ongoing zombie apocalypse series. And also sign up at epicmermaids.com so it can let you know by email when The Mermaids is released. It will be soon. I will see you again soon with another video, and if I don't see you, I will miss you.